The most dangerous diplomatic pivot of the 21st century just happened, and it didn't happen in Washington. It didn't happen in Beijing. It happened in a hotel in Islamabad, Pakistan, where a country of 250 million people sitting on a nuclear arsenal positioned between China and the Arabian Sea just became the single most consequential diplomatic actor on the planet. And Washington handed them that power, not because America wanted to, because America had absolutely no other choice. Drop your opinion in the comments right now. Is Pakistan playing both sides of this chessboard, or is Islamabad genuinely the most strategic nation on earth right now? And if Borderline News is not yet in your subscriptions, you are watching this geopolitical earthquake without a map. Hit subscribe. Because what just unfolded between Trump, Islamabad, and Beijing is not a news story. It is a tectonic realignment of global power, and it is happening at warp speed. Let's establish the brutal ground reality first, because context is everything in geopolitics, and without context, you are just watching noise. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury against Iran. The stated objective was to destroy Iran's nuclear program, decapitate its military leadership, and force the Islamic Republic into submission within days. What actually happened was something entirely different. Iran's supreme leader was killed. Iran's conventional military took catastrophic structural damage. And Iran responded by doing the one thing that no Pentagon war simulation fully accounted for. It closed the Strait of Hormuz, mined it, charged tolls of over $1 million per ship to transit it, and turned 21 miles of international water into the most powerful economic weapon ever deployed by a non-superpower in modern history. Washington declared victory multiple times. Each declaration was followed by Iran launching another missile salvo, another drone swarm, another attack on a Gulf tanker. The decisive war became a grinding, expensive, globally destabilizing war of attrition. And the United States needed a way out that didn't look like defeat. That exit door had one name on it: Pakistan. Here is what makes Pakistan's emergence as the world's critical diplomatic broker so staggering and so strategically calculated. Pakistan is not neutral. Pakistan is not Switzerland. Pakistan is a nuclear-armed state with an active conflict against the Afghan Taliban on its western border. It has 90% of its oil arriving through the Gulf, meaning the Hormuz closure was directly strangling Pakistan's own economy in real time. Its 250 million population includes 15 to 20% Shia Muslims who were watching the war on Iran with mounting sectarian fury. Its military, under Field Marshal Asiammunir, launched Operation Muhafizul Bar in March to physically escort Pakistani oil tankers through contested Gulf waters. And simultaneously, it was hosting the foreign ministers of Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Egypt for multi-party crisis summits. Pakistan was not a bystander offered a mediating role. Pakistan engineered its mediating role, built it brick by brick, phone call by phone call, shuttle by shuttle, and then presented itself to Washington as the only available bridge to Tehran. Asiammunir. Remember that name because he is the most consequential military figure in this entire crisis that Western media is chronically underreporting. Pakistan's Field Marshal, the army chief, personally flew to Tehran to meet Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. He personally coordinated with jdvance. He personally carried Washington's messages to Iranian leadership when no formal diplomatic channel existed. He was the human infrastructure of the ceasefire. And on April 8th, when Trump announced on Truth Social that a 2-week ceasefire had been agreed, the ceasefire that pulled the world back from the absolute edge of civilizational economic collapse, Asiammunir's fingerprints were on every clause. Both Trump and Iranian officials publicly praised Munir and Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. That public praise from both warring parties simultaneously is not diplomatic courtesy. It is a signal. It means Pakistan now holds trust equity with Washington and Tehran at the same moment, a position no other country on earth currently occupies. Now let's talk about the Islamabad talks themselves, April 11th and 12th, 2026, because what happened in those 21 hours inside the Serena Hotel in Islamabad's red zone is a masterclass in the brutal mathematics of modern geopolitics. The American delegation was 300 members strong, led by Vice President jdvance, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner. 300 people for a negotiation. The Iranian delegation was 70 members, led by Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf and Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. Pakistan's mediating team was led by Sharif Munir and Deputy PM Ishaq Dar. 10,000 security personnel locked down the Pakistani capital. The city went on public holiday. This was not a back-channel conversation. This was the most consequential diplomatic summit since the Cold War, held not in Geneva, not in Vienna, not in New York, but in Islamabad. Let that sink in. The capital of Pakistan just hosted the negotiation that will determine whether 20% of the world's oil flows again. 3 rounds of talks. The first indirect, the second and third direct. American and Iranian negotiators in the same room for the first time. And they came, according to officials who were in that building, within inches of a memorandum of understanding. Inches. The 2 issues that blew the deal apart, the Iranian nuclear program and the status of the Strait of Hormuz. Washington demanded full commitment on denuclearization as a precondition. Iran demanded comprehensive sanction relief and the release of $6 billion in frozen assets as a precondition to any meaningful agreement. And underneath all of this, the IRGC's position, hardline, immovable, institutionally resistant to any concession, was directly contradicting what Iran's diplomatic team was prepared to agree to in the room. Iran's parliament speaker said afterward that his team had not expected a deal in one round and that contacts would continue. jdvance called it Washington's final and best offer. Those 2 statements are not compatible, and the gap between them is where the next phase of this war will be decided. Now, here is where the chessboard flips, and China enters the frame in a way that should make every strategist in Washington profoundly uncomfortable. On March 31st, Pakistani Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar flew to Beijing. He sat with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, and together they announced the China-Pakistan 5-point initiative, a joint diplomatic framework calling for an immediate ceasefire, the start of peace talks, an end to attacks on civilian infrastructure, the safe passage of ships through the Strait of Hormuz, and respect for the UN Charter. 5 points, simple, clean, and strategically brilliant, because the 5-point initiative didn't just propose peace, it positioned China and Pakistan as the legitimate architects of the global diplomatic alternative to American military force. Wang Yi made 26 phone calls to regional foreign ministers. China's special Middle East envoy traveled the region. The African Union endorsed the initiative. France said it largely aligned with its own position. The European Union's foreign policy chief received it as a basis for coordination. The Washington establishment's response, officially agnostic. One U.S. official described the administration's position on the Chinese-Pakistani effort as neither endorsement nor rejection. In geopolitical terms, agnostic means losing the narrative while pretending you're above it. Because here is the catastrophic strategic reality. While the United States was firing missiles and enforcing naval blockades, China was filing diplomatic paperwork and winning the global public opinion war without firing a single shot. China vetoed the Bahrain UNSC resolution that would have authorized military force to open Hormuz. China framed that veto as protection of international law and opposition to escalation, and simultaneously, China moved to tighten its grip on the Scarborough Shoal in the South China Sea, exploiting the exact moment when every American carrier, destroyer, and intelligence asset was locked onto a 21-mile strait in the Persian Gulf. This is the definition of strategic multi-theater pressure. Beijing didn't need to fight Washington. It simply waited for Washington to exhaust itself and then expanded while America was distracted, and now Trump's ultimatum to Pakistan. Because here is where the script enters its most explosive chapter. Trump needs a second round of Islamabad talks before the ceasefire expires on April 21st. The ceasefire is fragile, fraying, and structurally undermined by the IRGC continuing to control Hormuz traffic even after the agreement. Trump told the New York Post that a second round of talks could be happening over the next 2 days, again in Islamabad. He told Fox News the war is very close to over. He told reporters he expects amazing developments. And simultaneously, his Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced the U.S. is now ready to apply secondary sanctions on any country that buys Iranian oil or handles Iranian money. Secondary sanctions. That means China. That means any Chinese company, any Chinese bank, any Chinese state enterprise that has been purchasing Iranian crude, which Beijing has been doing at scale throughout this entire conflict, is now in the crosshairs of American financial enforcement. This is Trump's ultimatum to Pakistan, framed as a request, but understood in every foreign ministry on earth as a demand. Bring Iran back to the table, keep China in line, and deliver a deal before April 20 works, or the economic pressure goes to a level that damages everyone, including Islamabad's closest strategic partner in Beijing. The leverage Pakistan holds in this moment is extraordinary and deeply uncomfortable for Pakistan itself. On one side, the United States, which needs Islamabad's access to Tehran, which has praised Munir publicly, which is treating Pakistan as an indispensable partner for the first time in decades, a relationship that carries enormous economic and military incentives. On the other side, China, Pakistan's iron brother, its largest infrastructure investor through the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, its diplomatic shield at the UN, its co-architect of the 5-Point Initiative. Pakistan cannot fully satisfy both simultaneously. If Islamabad delivers Iran to a deal that Washington approves, full denuclearization, Hormuz reopened on American terms, Beijing loses its primary diplomatic initiative and its primary energy leverage point. If Pakistan protects the China-Pakistan framework and resists American pressure, Washington's trust evaporates and the entire mediating architecture collapses. This is the knife edge that Sharif and Munir are walking right now in real time, with the global economy hanging on every step. And here is the military dimension that makes this entire situation even more combustically unstable. The ceasefire that expires April 21st is not a ceasefire in any meaningful operational sense. 9 tankers per day are transiting Hormuz versus 130 before the war. The IRGC has launched 21 confirmed attacks on merchant ships. Iranian mines, of unknown quantity, unknown precise location, remain in the water. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Group, 11 destroyers, and the USS Tripoli Amphibious Group are deployed in the region. 2 American guided missile destroyers were confronted by IRGC forces on radio with the words, "This is the last warning," and reportedly turned back. An F-35, America's most advanced stealth fighter jet, costing over $100 million per airframe, taking 26 years to develop, was forced into emergency landing after taking Iranian ground fire. Iran claimed a second F-35 engagement. 12 MQ-9 Reaper drones have been lost. A KC-135 Stratotanker crashed in western Iraq, killing all 6 crew members aboard. The Pentagon is requesting over $200 billion in war supplemental budget to replenish depleted munitions. And a former U.S. Navy Rear Admiral publicly stated that American forces cannot safely hold positions in the Hormuz region until the counter-drone vulnerability is fixed. This is the military reality that Trump is bringing to the negotiating table. Not from a position of clean dominance, but from a position of achieved destruction combined with operational friction that is far more costly and far more complex than any pre-war briefing projected. The Trump-China dimension of this equation is perhaps the most geopolitically consequential variable of all. Trump wrote a letter to Xi Jinping personally asking China not to transfer weapons to Iran. Xi agreed. Trump posted on Truth Social that China is very happy that I am permanently opening the Strait of Hormuz. I am doing it for them also and the world. He predicted that Xi will give me a big fat hug when he visits Beijing in mid-May. This is not diplomacy. This is transactional theater, and Beijing is playing it with masterful patience. China publicly agrees not to arm Iran while simultaneously vetoing every UN mechanism that would allow American force to resolve the crisis. China publicly supports the ceasefire while its state enterprises continue purchasing Iranian crude at discounted prices. China publicly endorses Pakistan's mediation while using Pakistan as a vehicle to advance the five-point initiative that positions Beijing as the moral alternative to American military aggression. Xi doesn't need to arm Iran. Iran's own asymmetric capabilities are sufficient. What China needs is for this war to continue long enough to deplete American precision munitions, fracture the Western alliance, establish Chinese diplomatic leadership in the Middle East, and create the strategic cover for Beijing's simultaneous moves in the South China Sea, all without firing a single shot. Pakistan understands this dynamic completely. Asiammunir is not a naive actor. He is a former intelligence chief. He built Pakistan's ceasefire role with full awareness of every pressure vector. When Munir flew to Tehran on April 16th, carrying a message from Washington, he was simultaneously the instrument of American diplomatic will and the guarantor of Chinese diplomatic relevance, because any deal that emerges from Islamabad will credit the China-Pakistan five-point framework as its foundational architecture. Washington gets a deal, Beijing gets the credit architecture, Pakistan gets the geopolitical elevation, and Iran, battered, mined in, economically strangled, but operationally undefeated, gets to negotiate from a position of leverage that no one in the Pentagon's February 2026 war planning believed would be possible 47 days after the opening strikes. The ceasefire expires April 21st. The second round of Islamabad talks has not yet been confirmed. The Hormuz minefield remains. The IRGC's position remains directly contradictory to Iran's diplomatic team. Trump has ruled out extending the ceasefire while simultaneously predicting amazing developments within days. The S&P 500 rose on optimism that a deal is coming. Asian markets rallied, oil markets held their breath, and in the Serena Hotel in Islamabad, Pakistani officials are on the phone with Washington, with Tehran, with Beijing, with Riyadh, trying to thread an impossible needle before a deadline that the entire global economy is watching in real time. Here is the final, brutal, undeniable geopolitical truth of this moment. The United States spent 47 days bombing Iran into what it called submission. It deployed its most advanced aircraft, its most powerful naval assets, its most sophisticated intelligence capabilities. And at the end of those 47 days, the most powerful nation in the history of human civilization needed a 250 million person country whose own economy was being strangled by the war, whose own tankers needed military escorts, whose own capital had to declare public holidays to host the negotiation, to go to Tehran and ask for a deal on America's behalf. That is not victory. That is the new architecture of global power. And Pakistan is standing at the center of it, not because Washington chose Islamabad, because Islamabad made itself impossible to bypass. The chessboard has flipped. The question is whether anyone in Washington fully understands what just happened.